Hi, everybody. Welcome back to DogCo Secrets. I am Michelle Kline. I am your host and the founder of DogCo Launch, where pet care companies come to grow and scale. And I am excited to be back with you for another episode of the podcast. I have been working to get my head back on straight after our amazing summit a couple weeks ago. I was telling a client that I was on the phone with today. I had this belief that my time would be more free, better organized after the summit ended. And somehow I feel like I have no time. Like I just feel like it has been just vanishing into thin air. So I'm reclaiming some time tonight. I am filming this tonight. You may be listening to this at any point in time to sit down and just reconnect, re-engage, which goes really well into the episode I had already planned for this episode, which is my 60-day plan to end the year strong. So when I looked at the title of that and sat down to plan out the content, I laughed because I was like, that's so fitting. Like past me must have known somewhere, somehow in their deep subconscious that me today would need this moment of refocus coming off of such a big event, such a big moment in my career, I think, and such a big moment for our industry. And, taking a moment to take that in and then taking a moment to look ahead. Something about the summit. So, well, I wasn't planning on processing the summit at all, but I have processed the summit very little. So maybe I'll do a little bit of a lifetime of that right now. This was not planned, so we'll see where it goes. I put very little thought prior to the summit on what impact it would have after. And I know that sounds really silly, but the summit was such a big undertaking that really all of my focus went towards making sure the event was executed well. My team gets a million shout outs because it would have been executed a lot less well had they not been such a huge piece of what we were doing. But it really was a full team effort, and we were all just really locked in on all the different pieces that it took to pull that off. I spent very little time on the forefront thinking about what would come after. I just knew that this would be impactful. I knew it would be powerful, or I wanted it to be, but it's been a big whirlwind since. I'm thankful so many people were able to participate. I'm excited for next year. It feels like we have a lot of momentum coming off of this one and momentum going just into what everything will be next year. So if you were a piece of that, because I know many of you who listen to this podcast are either my clients or maybe followed the event from afar or purchased tickets, even if you couldn't come live, thank you. Your support is what allowed that event to be what it was, which was, and I'm wildly biased, but incredible. And I'm just so excited for next year. Like we're only just getting started. So going back to this podcast and the episode for right now, this 60-day plan to end the year strong, 60-day-ish, because let's be honest, the last 2 weeks of December kind of count, but like kind of don't. So I'm really looking at like I have 60 days of usable time to finish this year, to exhale a little bit, but also to finish strong. I know I've used that phrasing before, but that really feels relevant to me right now of coming off of this huge event, looking ahead to a big year, and also having a lot going on right in this moment. So there are two things I am focused on for the remaining 60 days of 2025. There are more days than that, but the remaining 60 days of momentum. So number one, I am focused on finishing strong. I have 3 areas that I'm really focused on that I'll kind of break down if it's helpful. And that's always the goal of this, is to either provide some form of education, training, teaching from things I've learned that helps people, or just expose to you, this is what I am currently learning and currently figuring out. And hopefully that helps too, to kind of see that lifetime process. So 3 things with finishing strong that I'll go over. And then the other thing that I'm wrapping my mind around is, what does it look like to set the foundation well for next year? I think next year is going to be a really big year for my business, just an impactful year. I'm so excited to do the summit again. I'm excited for all these areas that I've been trying to grow that I see kind of coming together, and just where our industry is headed and all those pieces. So wanting to make sure that I am setting up next year to really be what I'm hoping it to be. I don't know if y'all have ever started a new year and you kind of feel like you're dragging yourself into it. Like, that's not the goal. The goal is to start the year feeling really centered, feeling really prepared. So let's get into it. So, on finishing strong, the first thing that I'm focused on is finishing out commitments for this year well. I actually, oh, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll get to actually see this. I wonder if it'll be backwards when I hold this up. I can't tell. Okay. Because this is going to go into editing. So, whatever. It says be present. And that is a note that I have sitting right under my monitor. Is this reminder to be present with where I am with clients right now? Because I know there's a real risk just with everything swirling around in my head right now from the summit and looking ahead to next year. Enrollment just opened for the mastermind. Hint, hint, if you're considering it, enrollment's open. I am filming this the first day after enrollment opened, and we have already hit 12% capacity, which is kind of insane for like a 10-week sales cycle only being open like 24 hours. So I'm so hyped. If you are interested, I encourage you to go ahead and reach out. I don't know how many more seats we will have by the time this airs. We will have seats, but like, go ahead and reach out. So anyways, see, I just did it again. I was talking about being present and then my brain went forward. And that's already a risk area for me, is to be more in the future than in the present. And so really trying to finish well this year, especially with clients, like with clients that have been in my program this year, helping them end the year well, helping them cross the finish line for certain goals that they had set that they have been working on all year, helping them with their process and planning. And, there's this weird tension at the end of the year where it feels like you both need to accelerate the gas to end well, while also kind of starting to slow the brake to get some rest and reflection and to sure things up. And so as I'm navigating that tension in my own business, helping clients navigate it with theirs. So being present, finishing well, making sure that I really bring the full circle together for the people I work with for what this year was supposed to be, not just next year. The second thing I'm looking at with finishing strong is data, metrics, and systems for my own business. So I have shared very openly with my clients, I don't naturally trend towards structure or like operations. I was very operationally strong in my pet care business because it demanded that of me. And so I very intentionally learned that skill set and developed that prowess, but it doesn't come naturally. And I've noticed with the busyness and with the excitement and the fervor and, all the things happening after a big year, there's some big systems holes that I am now having to kind of step in and retrain that part of my brain and like reforce that process with myself of like, yes, you want to focus here, but you're going to have to be here for a bit. So, very specific example, setting up a CRM. So, we are open for enrollment, which I mentioned for my programs. We've just reached a size where it's not enough to cobble together Google documents and pieces of paper that I'm jotting like random things down on. We need a true system to make sure people have clarity, to make sure that it's organized, people know where they need to be. I have someone helping me with enrollment this quarter, so a new team member that's come on. So that's really exciting. Want to make sure they're set up for success. So that's a big focus right now. It absolutely feels like building an airplane while it's already flying, since we've already opened for some of the things that the system is supporting. But thankfully, I have a team that leans into the chaos and have been incredibly helpful and understanding to that. So trying to learn a new system, trying to implement a new system well has been a big thing. And on the metrics side, wanting to make sure that I am taking the time at the stage that the company is at now to acquire and organize and interpret the data that's in front of me before going into a season where I'm adding more. So right now, I really want to take the time to gather the information needed to establish benchmarks for my own company. If you've worked with me or just listened to my podcast, I am a big believer in having defined benchmarks ahead of setting any kind of goals, because otherwise we have nothing to measure against. And then we're just shooting arbitrary energy into the universe of like, I have hopes, I have dreams, but they're not really grounded or rooted in anything. It's like the contrast of the benchmark to what you're achieving that gives you the clarity on if you are on the right path or not. And I talk about that all the time with my clients, but I have not really taken the time to develop that out for my own business and going into a season where it just feels like we're on the precipice of DogCo just growing and evolving and being more than it has been. So I need that. And I need that to give me an indication if we're growing the right way and growing in the ways that I want us to be, especially because I'm developing out more of my team, which is super exciting. I guess this is a news drop on the podcast. Wasn't planning on talking about this either. I feel like we have a lot to catch up on. It's been a few weeks. I've hired 5 new team members in the last 10 days, which is huge. My team previously was 2 people full time and then kind of a slew of part time people supporting what we're doing. And that slew of part time people is now much bigger. It essentially tripled over the last 10 days. So getting my mindset into, okay, it's big. There are some areas I'll be stepping not out of, but into a different role with the business. People need to be onboarded and equipped and trained. And I need these benchmarks to be able to know if I'm building in the right way. I'm such a believer of data. And so I need to get the system set up, though, to where I can actually capture and interpret the data the way that I need to. And I don't have that right now. So that's a big focus for quarter 4. And that to me is a big piece of finishing this year strong, using these last 60 days really well. Again, there are more than 60 days, but kind of there's not. And then finally, my finishing strong plan is to take 2 weeks off in December. So that is a practice that I started about 3-4 years ago, where Evan and I, around the holidays, so we never do gifts, and instead we do a very intentional trip together. Not necessarily over Christmas, but kind of around that time. It's a time for us to reflect on the year, to rest, to reconnect, and just to feel like we're finishing the year both on a high note and also on a restful note. So I'm really excited for a trip this year. We are headed to Norway. So we are going to just find Christmas markets and see snow. That's literally the entire plan. And I plan to take 2 or 3 days on our trip to do a lot of writing, to do a lot of thinking. But I will get to that because that's part of my setting the foundation category. So my goal is to enter into 2026 feeling incredibly rested and centered and ready for everything that the year will bring, which I'm sure will be, chaotic and tiring and growing and all of the things. But I would at least like to start the year feeling full rather than feeling tired. And so that is the goal of that specific window of time. Okay, so that to me is what it looks like to finish this year strong. The second category for me is setting the foundation for the year to come. So there are 3 areas that I'm really focused on here as well. Let's get into it. So the first one is systems for next year. So one of the biggest growth areas that I think I have as an entrepreneur is building systems proactively. And I say growth as in I need to grow in this area, not like I have actually actualized this. I have not yet. I very badly need to grow in this area. I tend to build systems when things break without them. That has worked to a certain point because there hasn't been enough volume for that to necessarily be a big lift on my end. We are reaching the size of a company where that's no longer true. I have to get better at either building more proactive systems myself or empowering other people on my team to do that, which also hasn't been a focus area for me because we have just been like kind of running to keep ahead of all of the noise. So that is a focus for this upcoming year, is taking some time to think about what systems do we need in place to accelerate our growth next year, to make sure that our clients have what they need, to make sure our team is supported, to make sure that I'm able to bring the next vision of DogCo to life, because I am sure I'll be cooking up things all year long for 2027. They're already starting. Like I can't turn it off. So that's my goal. And I don't even know what those systems will be. Like those are the category areas. Taking time to actually map out what specifically do we need? What do we already have access to? Where are the holes? Where are things breaking? And where will they break with more volume? An exercise that I put my clients through with their business is I like to ask the question, if you doubled it, what would break? And I don't plan to double DogCo overnight, but I do think that's a worthwhile question of what systems break under volume and really learning to practice that muscle of that forward thinking operations work. It's been quite a while since I have had to activate that part of my brain in the same way. Looking at my last company, that was a big inflection point for our growth. And I think we're hitting a very similar place where it's like getting to the next level looks like flexing that forward planning operations more than I have been. So that'll be me. And I know I won't enjoy it and it's got to happen. I'm a big believer in the phrase, the business just needs what it needs. And as the owner, it's our job to figure out how to get the business what that is. And that is what the season will look like for me. And that is okay. The second area of focus for me in setting the foundation is the category of people. So DogCo at its heart is relationships. There are a lot of different pieces and facets of DogCo and so many ways that it intersects in the industry. But I think the most powerful part of DogCo and the most powerful part of what this business is and what it's been built to be is at its core to be a relationship hub, a place for companies that are doing the same thing, struggling with the same problems, owners that are in very similar places to have community connection support as we are all elevating each other. So as part of that, I want to make sure that people feel really relationally good coming into DogCo next year. Now, some of that is outside of my control, for sure, like the way the companies relate to each other. Like I can build the environment, but what is within my control is giving people clarity. That's the word I was looking for, giving people clarity on what next year will be and what journey their business could have, and setting both that vision and also that moment of connection and encouragement. So that's something I'm trying to be really intentional about right now because there are just a lot of moving pieces. And I feel like that could very easily get lost in the shuffle for me. That's kind of a risk at the moment. Nothing in DogCo to me makes sense if relationships aren't at the core of it. I think that really is the power of this community and the power of, like, in many ways, this program. And so I really don't want to lose sight from that. And so that is a big focus for right now. And then the final category of setting the foundation for my 60-day in the year strong plan is making sure I take the time to get clear on next year, to very specifically set goals and to really build out a strategic plan for executing, especially for the first 90 days of the year. I don't tend to get too specific outside of a 6-month time frame. I need to know where I'm headed. So I mentioned we're going to take 2 or 3 days on our trip to set some time aside for writing, planning, visioning. And that's really what this category is for, just taking the time to get clear on 2026, on all the things happening next year, on what it's going to take to reach the very specific goals. Taking time to think through what those goals are and making sure they're clear and specific and that I'm going to be able to reach them in a way that I'll enjoy, not a way where it, would require me to sacrifice other things that are important to me, like my health and time with my husband and my dogs. So that is a big focus, is just taking the time to get clear. Like your 60-day plan, if you choose to make one, will be different than mine. It's really going to depend on your business, what's going on, how this year has been for you. That's going to determine what it looks like to finish strong and set the foundation. But the one category of what I said that I really would recommend, regardless of all the other pieces you do, is to try and set aside some time at the end of the year to review this last year and to plan ahead. And I really think it needs to be more than like just an afternoon, or maybe it's just the way my brain works, but I need time to kind of settle in reflection. I need time to let myself be inspired. I like to do that in like beautiful places, so outside of my normal context, to just be inspired and to think about, what I could create in the upcoming year and what I would enjoy doing. And that process never comes quickly for me. If I find 30 minutes or an hour where I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to plan things out, it's never enough. And I just feel rushed. I feel like I'm making rushed decisions. And I'm just convinced that one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself as an entrepreneur sometimes is to slow down and to take time. And the end of the year is when I'm really intentional about doing that. And I would encourage you to be as well, because I genuinely believe so much in the impact of that. So that's what I got. That's what it looks like to me to end this year well. We have a final quarter together, and then we are on to many, many, many good things. Shameless plug, if you're considering the mastermind, I would really encourage you to go to my website. It's dogcolaunch.com. There is a mastermind page. You can read more about it. And if what I said inspired you to get in the room with these other companies to be at that kind of core relationship focal point, then I hope you will consider joining us. So that's all I have for today, y'all. Have a good one.